Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Zara Seidler.
I'm Billi FitzSimons.
On Sunday, New South Wales Police arrested 141 people associated with the climate protest in Newcastle. It came after thousands of people took out kayaks and inflatable rafts in an attempt to block coal ships entering the world's biggest coal port. In today's podcast, Billi, we're going to break down what the protesters were aiming to do, how New South Wales Police responded, and what comes next.
Zara, when I woke up yesterday morning, I saw this protest all over international news sites.
Yeah.
Which is when I feel like I know that this is a big story.
Yeah, it does make you feel special when Australia comes up in the New York Times. You're like, yes, we made it.
Australia's on the big stage.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a bit like that, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this protest.
Mm-hmm.
What were organisers aiming to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this specific protest, and there have been lots of climate protests held across the year, but this one was organised by a group called Rising Tide. That group says it was actually one of the first grassroots climate groups here in Australia. They've been active in Newcastle since 2005, so that's 20 years. It's a long time. And they say that they're known for community campaigning and non-violent direct actions. We'll unpack what that means in a little bit. But the group itself has three main demands. So basically, they're protesting because of three main things. One, they want to immediately cancel all new fossil fuel projects. Mm-hmm. Two, they want to tax fossil fuel export profits at 78% to fund the transition to green energy. Lots of words to just say they want fossil fuel companies to be paying for the transition away from fossil fuels, essentially. Mm-hmm. And three, to end all coal exports from Newcastle by 2030. And so just quickly, the reason that they are targeting Newcastle is because it's the world's largest coal port.
And I've seen protests from this group, from Rising Tide. I mean, you said that they've been around for 20 years. Yeah. I feel like I have seen them in the news before. What's different about what happened over the weekend? Yeah,
so this weekend marked their annual People's Blockade, and that's a specific event in, I guess, their calendar. Mm-hmm. And that is a multi-day event. It actually continues until today. And the People's Blockade, as the name would suggest, is an organised effort by the group to block those coal exports by physically blockading them from coming into the port or leaving the port.
And when you say physically blocking them, you mean they literally get into the water in kayaks, I think
I
saw?
In kayaks and like these inflatable rafts. So they're not using boats, presumably, that would require energy, like, you know, an electric motorized boat. They were all on kayaks, or like there were lots of photos and videos of people blowing up these inflatable rafts. And essentially they went out and physically blocked the entry and exit of certain boats. There were thousands of people who did this. As I said, it was like fairly organized. If you go onto the Rising Tide website, there's a whole long list of like, you can do this, you can't do this. Here's what type of kayak to bring. If you can't swim, you can't do this, those sorts of things. So it's very organised. So as I said, they are trying to disrupt those coal ships. And what we understand is that by 5 p.m. on Sunday, the Port Authority of New South Wales had issued a statement confirming that the protest activity had disrupted 4 ships, including 2 that weren't actually coal ships. We don't know whether that was on purpose or not. In that statement, the Port Authority said that maintaining the safe operation of the port and ensuring the safety of maritime workers and the general public remains the highest priority. So that's giving a bit of colour as to why those boats were disrupted.
And when you say that they successfully disrupted those boats, you mean that their process was temporarily halted?
Yeah, exactly.
But in the end, they didn't actually stop the boats from arriving on Australian shores because then police got involved?
Hello, my name's Sam. I'm the co-founder of TDA. I'm just popping in to interrupt this video to ask if you could do one thing for me, and that is press subscribe on this YouTube channel. It's the best way to show us that you love what we do and that you're here for our future. And now, back to the deep dive.
Yeah, so there was a brief period where basically the process of these boats coming or leaving was interrupted. As you said, it was resumed later, but there was a disruption that stopped them in their tracks, essentially. But yeah, as you said, there was quite a lot of police presence at this protest, and there were a number of arrests made. And this was really what was dominating headlines because it is quite a significant number. So at least 141 people were arrested. And as I said, this protest activity is ongoing, and so we can expect that number could rise over the coming days. Of those 141 people arrested, 18 of them were children. And so they were dealt with under the Young Offenders Act. Police had a line in their press statement that said that, which I thought was quite interesting.
And when you say children under 18?
Under 18, exactly. And so they're dealt with obviously differently under the law. The rest of those arrested, I'm not going to do quick maths, but the rest of them were adults. And so they will be charged and tried as adults. Police did include some incidents of note. That's what they call them. I'll just list off a few to give you a sense of what some of these charges might be. So one woman allegedly was on a boat and she collided with a police jet ski that was pursuing her. And so they arrested her after that activity. Separately, police reported an alleged assault where a man sustained lacerations in his back, arms, legs, and head. But more broadly, police said that they witnessed several unsafe practices on the water. So those were some isolated, incidents that police reported in their statement. But then more broadly, they were talking about the protest at large. They said, while New South Wales Police recognises and supports the rights of individuals and groups to exercise their rights of free speech and peaceful assembly, the priority for police is always the safety of the wider community, and there will be zero tolerance for illegal and dangerous behaviour.
And over the past few years, there has been a big conversation in Australia and between the states and territories, because I know protest laws is up to the states and territories.
Exactly.
But I feel like across all of Australia, the protest laws have changed recently.
Yeah.
Where are we up to in New South Wales?
Yeah, it's a good question and perhaps a good opportunity for a refresher because we did do a pod episode and we'll throw that in today's show notes. But essentially just taking one step back a bit because the language that used by police there I think can be a bit confusing because here in Australia there's nothing in our constitution that ensures we do have a right to protest. That's not in our constitution. There are only a few things that are enshrined there. Where we are protected is that Australia is party to several human rights treaties, and under those treaties, the right of peaceful assembly is recognised. Specifically, that treaty says no restrictions may be placed on the exercise of this right other than those imposed in conformity with the law and which are necessary in the interests of national security or public safety or public order. Continues on with a few other things, but I think that's an important thing to highlight because New South Wales Police over the last few years have started to crack down on protests, especially in reference to public safety. So when we last spoke about this, it was in regards to quite a significant pro-Palestinian march that was rejected by police because of they deemed a risk to public safety. In New South Wales specifically, you ask, there have been a number of legislative responses that we have seen to the rise in these types of protests. And essentially, I guess to categorise it all in one, police now have more powers to shut down these protests ahead of time or if they deem there to be a public safety risk when there.
So they have more power in order to stop these kinds of protests.
Yeah, exactly. And then in certain circumstances, they also now have more powers to arrest and charge protesters with new crimes.
And so you said that there were 141 people who were arrested. Is that an unusually high number of people who were arrested?
I thought it was. Like when I saw that headline, I couldn't remember a time where we had seen that number of arrests. However, I was mistaken because at the same event last year, police arrested more than 173 people. So there were actually fewer people arrested this year at the same event than last year, which I was quite surprised about. Many of those people who were arrested last year are actually still facing the legal system here in New South Wales at the time of recording. Earlier this year, there was a push by Rising Tide to get those charges dropped. They were quoting legal experts. In a statement in October, they said the police have spent enough time, money and resources on these charges. Police as prosecutors must act in the public interest, and the public interests and the interests of justice can only be served if these charges are withdrawn. But that has not happened, and we can now assume that exactly the same process is going to start from now with the 141 people who have been charged this time around.
And just to end, you said at the start that Rising Tide's aim, you listed all of their aims and a lot of them were government action.
Yeah.
So has the government responded to what has happened?
Yeah, look, we haven't heard much federally. I do want to point out that Federal Greens leader Larissa Waters was there. She participated in the blockade. She has a video of herself. In that video, she said that she was part of the flotilla fighting for a safe climate and that she couldn't be more proud. But more broadly, we didn't actually hear much from the federal government, but it must be said that they were a bit busy this weekend. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese got married on Saturday.
He did, the first Australian Prime Minister to get married whilst in office.
Correct. That's a little fun trivia fact that you can put in your little pocket. But we did see from a lot of the photos that most of cabinet, if not all, were there. And I bring that up only because I want to finish on a note from Rising Tide, because they did have some comments about the Prime Minister's marriage. They said in a statement, "We congratulate Mr. Albanese on his marriage. Now it's time to divorce the Minerals Council and other fossil fuel lobbyists, stop approving new coal and gas projects, and slap a new tax on coal profits to fund new jobs." So that is their comments about the Prime Minister's wedding. But certainly we haven't had much of a response from the federal government about this specific protest.
I was going to ask you the relevance between the Prime Minister's wedding and this
protest. Thank you. I was wondering if the segue was going to work. I'm not sure if it landed, but I think it might have.
A very interesting story, and yeah, I mean, they've been around for 20 years, so I'm sure that we will be hearing much more from this group.
Absolutely.
Zara, thank you for taking us through that.
Thank you, Billi.
And thank you so much for watching this podcast on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow with another deep dive, but until then, have a great day.